The dashboard on the screen summarizes an entire year's reports for the property management team of a hypothetical real estate company located in Rivers State, Nigeria. So to give a glimpse of what the datasets used for creating this dashboard looks like, we are going to view our datasets using our Excel workbook. The dataset consists of 4 different tables, namely the landlord's personal information, tenant's personal information, tenant's property information, and tenant's payment schedule. So as you can see on the screen here, we are focused on the landlord's personal information, where you can see the landlord's first name, you can see the landlord's last name, the phone number, email address, property address, property ID, and property type. As for the tenant's personal information, we can also see the tenant's ID, first name, last name, phone number, email, property address. Then for the tenant property information, we have the tenant's ID, tenant property address, property ID, and property type. And finally, for tenant's payment schedule, we have tenant's ID, property ID, tenancy start date, tenancy end date. We have the property status, if the property is being occupied or not by any tenant. We have the rent to be paid. We have the rent paid by the tenant, the rent owing. Then we have the rent status. That's if the tenant made a complete payment or the tenant made a part payment. Then we have the property management fee. Now, as we know, the property management fee will be a percentage that the property management team takes from every rent paid. And for the purpose of this dashboard, we are making it 7%. Going back to our property management dashboard that has already been created. At first glance, while we look at this dashboard, we can see the total rent expected from all tenants. We can also see the sum of rent that was paid by the tenants. We can see the sum of rent owing by the tenants. We have a total of 50 property owners. We have a total of 320 tenants living on the properties. Now, the property ID field here describes the total number of properties that we have under the management portfolio, and each ID is unique to each property. Clicking on a particular ID, we have PID1. When we click on PID1, we get to see all the information related to property PID1. And what we have now is we know that PID1 is a residential property with a total of 1 tenant. And we can see that this property is being occupied presently, and this is the address for the property. Then when we click on the tenant's ID, we can see the tenant's the tenancy start date for the tenant and tenancy end date for the tenant. We can see that the total rent expected for this tenant to pay is 1,680,000 naira. And we can see that the tenant made a payment of 1,176,000 naira, approximately 1,080,000. Then we can also see that the tenant is owing a total of 504,000 naira. Now, moving on, we can see that the management fee that was earned from this property, or from this tenant rather, is a total of 82,320 naira. Now, let's select another property. Let's select a random property. Let's select PID 23. Now, selecting PID 23, we can see that this is a commercial property with a total of 4 tenants, and presently every house on that property is being occupied, and we can see the total rent expected from PID 23. So the total rent expected from PID 23 is 8,250,000 naira, but the total rent that was paid from PID 23 is 7,820,000 naira, and the total rent owing on that property is 426,000 naira. from this diagram here, from the pie charts presented here, we can see that 3 tenants meet complete payments while 1 tenant meets part payments. Now we can click on the tenant's ID. These are the tenants that are currently living on PID 23. So if we click on the first tenant has an ID of 105. So if we click on this tenant, we can see that this tenant made complete payments of their rent, which is a total of 1,900,000 naira. You can see that the pie chart here changes to complete payments. While we can do the same for this other tenant. This person made a complete payment also. The third tenant made a complete payment. Now, this tenant made a part payment. And we can see the tenancy start date and expiration date. This tenant is expected to pay 2,130,000 naira as their rent, but this tenant only paid 1.7 million naira. That's 1,704,000 naira, and it's owing a sum of 426,000 naira. We can see the tenant's tenancy start date, and we can see the end date here. And we can see the management fee end just from this person's, that's tenant's 314 alone. Now we can see the address of this property, that's PID 23, and we can also see that it's commercial property. Now this is just one of the many benefits of using this dashboard. It expands on, it goes far beyond that. You can do them for so many other properties. As you can see, the information keeps changing. You can do them for as many as you want, 2 properties at the same time. Now, going back, selecting all our properties, this currently shows details of all our properties. Now, if you want to see the property by name, we can go through the next page, right click on and drill through. When we drill through, we can see, if we want to see the landlord's name, let's pick, for example, we take PID 1. This shows that it's a residential property located at 23 Palm Avenue, GRA Phase 1. We can see the landlord's name, Tope, the landlord's last name, and the landlord's email address. Then we can see the tenant's details also living on this property. For this tenant, the tenant ID is T54 and the first name is Femi. We can also do this for another property randomly. You can see the details in person. So this is just one of the many benefits of using this dashboard. Thank you.